So as I mentioned recently, I got pretty excited by buying one jewel orchid, and I ended up wanting to make a terrarium that had a lot of little jewel orchids in it. Now I thought a bit about this, and they all do have their special Latin names, but it just doesn't matter to me that much. They're difficult to remember, they're difficult for me to pronounce. I don't have a classical education in pronouncing Latin names, and I'm not sure that anyone who's at that level of interested in jewel orchids is really going to be watching my video. So this is more about the aesthetics of this and making something which I believe will meet the needs of these plants in this terrarium jar and also be very beautiful. So to get started with that, I did purchase some gravel that I bought on the grounds that I thought it was prettier than the black gravel that I've previously used. It's got a sort of a slate grey blue condition to it, and it may be bluer when it's wet, we'll see. So I do want to see if I can create something again that has a bit of a movement to it, a little bit of lift layers, and I have an idea for that. So we're going to go ahead and start trying to build that up a little with the gravel. So I'm going to put down a layer of gravel. And that's going to be the base layer. So this is the layer that we're going to try and protect a bit from getting soil on it. I'm just going to put some mesh down over the center of it to protect some of it so that it's going to stay nice and airy and light in there, so that when the water goes in, there's a repository for it that's not clogged or full of dirt wicking it out, and it will let the system flow more freely. And then in addition, this is where I'm going to add some charcoal to just help the system to stay clean. But then I'm going to use a little more gravel because I want to build one side of this up so it's slightly higher than the other side before we start putting dirt in. And I do want to make sure I keep gravel down at the front here, if this will be the front, to cover up that mesh. But I want to put more up at the back here as we're going to start building it. So I put together some substrate that is a mixture of just the normal tropical mixture that I use from Repot Me and some damp sphagnum. I don't have all the plants I'll be using here just yet, but the ones that I have are going to be, the ones that aren't here yet are more vining plants. So I don't need to put too deep of a substrate on, I don't think. Again, we're just trying to build up. One side is a little higher than the other, because for the most part there's only this one which I'm going to sort itself out of its soil maybe and put it in sphagnum like the rest, or maybe it'll just stay in its soil. But mostly we're not going to be messing with the roots of these if we can help it. Okay. Okay, so that's built up into a little bit of a bank. And now I have to decide who's going where. But before I do that, I have some hardscaping. And we're building up the bank behind it and the area in front. So the hardscaping is bendable, and I am bending it a bit. It's not technically bendable because technically it's a tiara. I bought it. It is a replica tiara from a collection. And this one is a replica of a tiara called the Great Wave Tiara. Well, it came in and it was massively too large for my head or the head of anyone I knew. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted to build up an embankment in here, I thought, what do I have that is curved and tallish and interesting? And I remembered this. So I think we have room in front for one of the orchids, very tiny orchid. Now this one has little tiny pink veins, and I will take this one pop it out of its travel container, lose a little of this sphagnum, but we don't want to disturb the roots too much. And then, yeah, I think this one can slide in over here. Hi, yeah, down you go. Dig out some more of this, of my sphagnum, to just slide that one in place and then couch it down. Of course, once these get bigger, then we may have a problem on our hands, but that is a problem for future me, and current me refuses to consider that possibility. All right, so that's one down. What other one should we put in the front? So this is the front with the lower bed, and this is going to be the up higher. I have this one which has orangey veining, but I don't want to put that quite right near this because I think they are too matchy. So I have this one that's not showing up too much in terms of sparkle yet, but it's got a lovely sheen to it and it's got a different shaped leaf. So I think we'll put that in the center front. And if you're looking at any of these and thinking, gosh, I really want that, I want that specific orchid, just comment and I'll tell you which is what. Because I do still have it all in my email from when I bought them. Okay, so we did not disturb the root on that too much. The sphagnum did come right off it, but we're just popping it back down into this sphagnum, so fingers crossed. Everything's had a little while to acclimate in the house. Okay, so what we've got one at the side and one sort of center front. I think I want this one. This is, I can tell you that this one has some sort of it's called the sea turtle or something. Wow, look at that root. Those roots are great. And I think I want that right up the back here because it's already looking large and in charge. And then these other two, so this one which has got the other pale orange veining, gently, gently, ooh, good roots, small but good. I've come to understand that that's how these are. We'll do over this side of the back and put some more of the sphagnum down to hold that. I think this one will probably want to do what my Makoti spatola did and fall over, which is what I'm hoping for. Actually, we might just encourage it to have a bit more sphagnum around that bottom of it, to just encourage it to find somewhere to put more roots. Yes? Do you want to put aerial roots out and then actually make them terrestrial roots? Would that be fun? And then this one. Super dark velvety green with super bright sparkly veins. And we'll put this one over here You know, I think I want to move this one very slightly. Careful, careful roots. Slightly inland of the hard landscaping. Now, one thing I'm really slightly concerned about is that the moisture will pick up, you know, will cause the metal to corrode, and that will add elements we don't want into the soil mix. So this is a bit of an expensive experiment. I mean, setting aside how much I paid for the stupid tiara in the first place. It's not a stupid tiara, but it was also a ridiculous impulse purchase that has not been the best choice. Let's just say that. But yes, it might be an expensive experiment if it turns out that the orchids don't like this setting. And I'm going to have to brush all of this down, but I'll probably wait a bit on that until we've got everything else planted and settled. So what I haven't decided yet is if I want to add elements from my bag of sparkly rocks, or I have a very small bag of little mosaic tiles. I don't think the mosaic tiles are going to sit well. I think what we'll see is if I get vining plants growing in here, which is what's coming in next. Maybe once there's some vining plants down, holding down the sphagnum a bit, we'll see if these sit in there amongst them. Because I do like the sparkle. The sparkle is very nice, just to add. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Okay, fine. I'm doing a thing. We'll see how it holds up. I'll just lay down a little mosaic tiling, but no, yeah, it's a bit difficult to get them to lay how I want them to. The idea, of course, of the mosaic tiling is to make it look like these are growing in a garden and have overgrown it. Because that's my aesthetic vibe right now on Terraria. But maybe I need to put them on something else. Maybe I actually need to mosaic them onto something. Not sure what. Tiny piece of wood or something. And then we'll see. Here we are in the garden room. When we last looked at this terrarium, I had just planted the 5 jewel orchids into the sphagnum moss mix, and I just put in the 1 piece of hardscaping, which is the tiara. And I'd been trying to see if there was other hardscaping I could do with tiny little tiles, but I hadn't been able to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. But since then, I did put together some pieces with the tiles, and I'll show you how it came out. And I also did plant out 1 other small plant in there. For the tiles, I ended up gluing them to a backing, much as I did when I did the previous terrarium that had terraced walls made out of pieces of broken china. So these are glass tiles, and what I did was I took some of the metal mesh that I used in this terrarium at the base, and I cut that into some curved pieces, some interesting shapes, and glued the tiles to them so that when it went into the terrarium, I could bring the sphagnum moss up around the edges of it and it would look like broken paving, except glittery broken paving, because this terrarium has a very glittery theme to it. And so when I had done that, I also planted in this extremely small little vine. It's a solanum. which doesn't tell me much, and I'm not sure how much you know about solanum, but it's the entire family that includes potatoes and tomatoes and datura and deadly nightshade. So it's a big family, but this is a little vine, and I really liked the way the very pale veins on the little vine meshed in with what was going on with all of these gorgeous orchids. I'm hoping it will spread itself and settle in and add just a wild element into the layout. So then when I looked at that, I felt like I did like how it was all laid out, but I did want to cover a little more of the sphagnum moss with landscape elements. So I took my bag of sparkly stones from previous terrarium building and picked out ones that were either clear or silvery black or green and placed those around like loose boulders or rocks. I suppose they're actually too small to be boulders, so they really are in there as rocks. I did pick a couple that were clear but had a faint purpleness to them because I thought that really went well with the overall soft, shimmery, fairy-like look to this. So I think in this case I would say I have successfully made a fairy garden. I'm not sure if that was my intent, but I'd say that is what this is. It does look like something where a very beautiful small creature could live. And perhaps the sort of beautiful small creature you should never make deals with or tell your true name. I'd love to know what you think of this. I had a lot of fun putting it together and envisioning it. I think it will be pretty low maintenance. It just seems to want a relatively good amount of humidity. Fingers crossed. The jewel orchids all seem to have taken pretty well to the environment. I really am looking forward to seeing them grow a little larger, but I'm hoping they'll stay pretty small. I know that they're very juvenile, so I think I will have some time before they start to get bigger. I still can't pick out which of these jewel orchids is my favourite, but if you have a favourite, I would love to know. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this fun planting journey for what is now my 5th terrarium and the 3rd one that I'm keeping.